Hello everyone, Lisel Crowley here at the Cool Tool Studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really fun face ring using EZ960 clay and syringe. These rings work up very quickly and they have a lot of personality. I think you're going to have a lot of fun making them. Let's get started. These are the tools we'll be using for this project. We need a little bit of Scotch tape. We want a hydrator to keep our clay moist while we're working. Some type of ring mandrel. I really like the multi-mandrel, but any ring mandrel on a stand will work. We need water and brush. We're going to be using EZ960 clay for this project. It's the perfect clay for this project, and EZ960 syringe. A wick away, which is wonderful when you're working with a syringe, and you'll see how I use that when I do the project. These just show the different tips for the syringe. We're actually going to use the light green tip, which is the medium tip. You want some thickness frames, lubricant, and a roller, cutter. I always have my clay pick handy. I may not need it for this project, but I always have it handy when I'm working on metal clay. A work surface, and this is a new tool. It's a half-round forming tool, and this is wonderful for this project or for anything that needs a curve to it because it's nice and stable and the piece will dry nicely on there. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make the face part of the ring, and we're going to use this new forming tool to dry it so that it has this curve to it so it conforms to the finger. And I just want to put a little bit of lube on this. I don't want it saturated with lube, but just enough so that you know, the clay will release easily from it. And what I want to do is roll my clay out so it's roughly got a face shape. So I'll take a little piece of clay and I'll get it kind of in a little bit of a face shape. And I'm going to use my 4-card frame. And I'm just going to roll it in different directions. So I'm going to roll it long ways, and then I'm going to roll it widthwise. And what I like for these rings to have is a nice natural edge. I don't want to cut the face shape out. I just want it to have a nice natural edge. And now I'm going to lay this on this forming tool. And this will give the face a curve so that it will fit the curve of the finger. Now, I like to dry this, and then I will lightly sand the surface, and then I will draw the face on with syringe. If you want, you can sketch your face on with Sharpie or pencil or something and draw the syringe over it. Typically, I will do the syringe freehand without sketching first. So we're just going to put this in the dryer, and then we'll get to the next step. So here we have our face shape that has been dried on this mold, and you can see how it has this nice curve to it. So when it becomes a ring, it's going to conform to the finger and be much more comfortable to wear. Now I know I said I was going to do the face freehand, but I just want to show you how easy it is to just sketch a face on here. So I start with the brow line and the nose, and then I make the other brow. Then I'm going to make my eyes, and I'm not trying to get a perfect drawing here. I'm just kind of roughing out where everything's going to go, and then I'm going to have my mouth, okay? And again, it's really just a rough outline of where everything's going to go. So to do the actual syringe work, I like to moisten the piece first. And that Sharpie is going to burn right off, so you don't have to worry about that showing up after it's fired. I'm going to take my syringe, which has been stored in water, so this is what I use the wick away for. I just dab it on that sponge and get rid of the excess water. When you hold syringe, it's very important to hold it in your fist with your thumb on the plunger, and that gives you very good control. And when you lay down your line, you want to lay it down. You don't want to smush it on the piece. So I'm going to start with this brow line and just follow my drawing. And I'm not trying to be exact. I'm just, again, the drawing is just more of a guide of where to put things. So that, when that syringe came out, it was just a little blobby. And I don't really want that blobby look on there, so I'll show you how easy it is to just come in with your brush and wipe it away. But whenever you put the syringe back in the water, make sure you use the wick away. If you don't have a wick away, you can use paper towel, but this works really well. And let me come back and do this eye again. So I'm just going to do first the top of the eye. And then the bottom of the eye. And then I'll put a little eyeball in there. And last but not least, the lips. Okay, and the final step for this part of the project, I spray a little bit of Cool Slip on my work surface and get it on my finger, and I very lightly tap that syringe down. And what this does is it ensures that your syringe is going to bond well to the clay underneath, and it also sort of flattens the top of the syringe and smooths it out a bit. If I wanted to tweak like this mouth here, see how this side goes up? If I wanted to, I could try to make this side go up also and give her a smile. And see how it's much longer on this side? I can just clean that off and make the mouth more symmetrical. So once you get that syringe down there, you can play with it and adjust it just a little. I'm going to adjust the curve of the bottom lip just a little. And there we go. We have our face. And this will show up a lot better after it's fired and patinaed. So the next step is to dry this, and then we'll make the band for the ring. So the next part of this project is making the band for the ring. And whenever you make a ring out of metal clay, you want to consider the shrinkage factor. EZ960 is wonderful because it only shrinks 10%, so you don't have to make the ring that much larger. I like to go up 2 to 3 sizes depending on the width of the band. I find that the wider the band, the higher the size difference needs to be. If I want to end up with a 6.5 to a 7 ring, I'm going to build it on a size 9 mandrel. So I have my size 9 mandrel on my multi-mandrel. And I'm just going to put some Scotch tape right on the mandrel. I don't want to work directly on the mandrel. And I like using the Scotch tape because it doesn't add a big seam to the clay when I'm making it. I'm also going to put a little lube on that Scotch tape so that after the clay is dry, it's going to release nicely. And here's my face ready to go. So when I make a ring band, I prefer to start with a coil and flatten it as opposed to rolling out a strip of clay and cutting it. So I'm going to start my coil. And when I roll a coil for a ring band, I want it an even thickness, so I'm not tapering anything. And I'm just going to get it long enough so that it will be long enough to make the ring. And then I'm going to take my 4 cards frame and flatten. And what this does is give me a uniform strip of clay that has a rounded edge rather than a cut edge. And I just feel like that's it's less sanding and it's more comfortable to wear. I'm now going to wet this with water. And I'll wet it on both sides. I'm now going to wrap it around my mandrel. And overlap it. And I'm going to come in with my cutter, and I like to cut at an angle. And you want to get both sides of that excess clay pulled away. I don't know if you can see. I'm going to open this up more so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just pulling that excess clay away. I'm going to dab some water here and put it back together. Now, if it overlaps slightly, that's fine. Sometimes the clay will stretch a little as you're doing this. If it overlaps a little, it's fine because we're going to place that face right over that. I'm just going to wet and smooth that down a little. And now I'm going to take my face and set it right on top. And I'm pressing down to slightly flatten that band and also to make sure I have good contact. I'm going to actually take this off the mandrel now and look at it to make sure it's centered and not askew. I want it straight so that when you wear it, the face is straight on the hand. And that's basically the structure of the ring. We will again set this aside to dry. And then when it's completely dry, we'll do a final sanding. And the very last thing I do is a little decoration on the forehead. Okay, so here we have the ring that's been assembled. It's all dried. And I'm just going to do a light sanding. It really won't need a lot of sanding because there wasn't a lot of stuff that was done to it. I will take a little pad and just very lightly sand over the syringe, but it's really, really light, just in case there's any little prickly things sticking up. And then I love these half-round sanding sticks for the inside of rings. If you don't own a set of these and you like to make rings, I highly recommend you get them. They're really, really good for getting inside and sanding all around the inside of the band. Because I used the method of rolling the coil and flattening it, the edges of the band will not need a lot of sanding. So it really needs a minimal amount of sanding. I'm just going to brush away the sanding dust. And the last thing I'm going to do is I often on these will put a little decorative element on the forehead. And I typically wait until the ring has been dried and assembled to do this. So I'm just going to lightly dampen where I'm going to put my syringe. And make sure I dab it on the sponge from the wick away. And then I'm just going to put a little spiral there in the center of the forehead. And you could do a series of dots, you could do whatever, a zigzag, whatever you want. I'm going to dip my finger in a little bit of lube and just lightly press down. And then we'll just let that finally dry, and then we'll fire it, polish it, and patina it. So our ring is all finished. Isn't this a fun ring? And you can have a lot of fun making a variety of different faces using this technique. Syringe is great for so many things. I hope you enjoy this project.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.